You can see that I'm currently presenting from South Metropolitan TAFE, and you can hear helicopters happening overhead, which is part of the simulation, and it's all part of delving into what simulations actually mean for the vet industry. I do have a whole series of case studies that I am going to discuss with you this morning, but I really do need to set that picture for you as to what and how extended realities really mean for the vocational education training sector. Now, these are not the only particular digital technologies there are around. And you need to really be aware of what's happening in the whole landscape to really get your head around how augmented, virtual, and extended realities are actually going to be working for you. So you need to be really considering the Internet of Things, cryptocurrency, big data, artificial intelligence, and predictive learning analytics to actually really see that full picture. Now let me take you back to looking at some Hollywood blockbusters recently. You might have seen the New York bestseller Ready Player One come out this year with Steven Spielberg as the director. That really gave an interesting viewpoint on where we're heading in Hollywood's eyes with virtual reality. And it's quite a sobering thought that some of these technologies can be seen in such a dark way. However, today isn't about looking at the negativity, it's all about looking at the positivity of what we can actually achieve through using some very different types of technologies. But let me talk to you about what all the terms are that I'm going to be looking at. So you can see on the screen, you've got a couple of terms that you really need to be aware of. So we've got, first of all, augmented reality. And this is where we have computer-generated content overlaying a real-world situation. So my best example would be, let's flick back to 2016, where the Pokemon Go craze hit and everyone was chasing Pokemons. Well, they were definitely chasing them all over Perth here, but I'm sure they were also doing it from whatever cities you hail from. That was the biggest hit for augmented reality, and it's only grown since then. The next you need to be aware of is mixed realities. Now, this is a little bit of a twist on augmented reality, and this is where it's going to get exciting for us into the future. I was talking to Travis Badge the other day from North Metropolitan TAFE here in Perth, and he was telling me about a project that they've had running, and they've developed a mixed reality Connect 4 game with balls. So we all know the Connect 4 game, you put it in and you line it up, 4 wins. Well anyway, once it wins and you're wearing the augmented reality helmets, the balls will fall out and they will bounce. And they will bounce not only on the table that you're sitting on, but they will fall onto the floor. And it might roll over and hit the next table along and rebound. Now that rebound factor is your mixed reality. And that means the technology is seeing the world around you and is able to interact with it. And that's using that artificial intelligence that I was referring to earlier. The next you need to consider is your virtual reality. And this is fully immersive or semi-immersive computer-generated content. Now, I'm standing in the Kroonsberg Maritime Polaris Bridge Simulator, that's its full name, having to remember it all. This is not technically a virtual reality simulator. It is a semi-immersive experience, because if I look around anywhere else in this room, I can still see that I'm not technically on a ship. But I know that if I stand on this bridge and look at that ocean behind me, or that currently we're moving out of Sydney Harbour eventually when we get underway, and I know that I will get seasick if I stand at that wheel and watch it for long enough. And it's not that I'm seasick, it's actually that I'm sick from the simulator. And that's actually a real thing, simulator sickness. I know that if I jump in and this is going to be the geeky, nerdy sound of me, I do have a flight simulator at home. Now, it's not just a computer one, it's actually a cockpit that my husband has built, and we have the fully set up so we look out the windows as if it is what we're flying in. If I stay in there too long, I come over all types of peculiar, I tell you. So you do need to be aware of that. Then of course you've got the overarching, which is your extended reality, and that's a lot of the times what I'll be referring to. So that's your umbrella terminology. And the X, of course, stands for that unknown quantity. That's harking back to that algebra that you never thought you'd use at school. I want to have a look at augmented reality in the marketplace, and I want you guys, and I can see you on a monitor, so I'm not being rude, I'm just looking off to one side at my monitor. Can I just get a show of hands? How many of you have used Snapchat filters or Facebook filters, either you or your kids? You can see me in a picture with my daughter. So can I just get you to put your hands up, come on, own up, who actually have used these particular technologies? Yeah, I can see a few hands going up there this morning. This is new to the marketplace. The reason this is a critical juncture is that you've got all of the big players suddenly investing heavily in this marketplace. The reason that's important is because it's going to start driving costs down. Not only, you can see it for any augmented reality app, a lot of them are free or free embeds within an app, but also for virtual reality, it's pushing the prices down. Back in 2016, 2015, I can't remember my year at this point. It's very early in the morning over here. It's just, gone 6:50. Facebook invested and purchased a little upstart called Oculus Rift, and you would have all heard of it. $2 billion was invested in that initial buyout, and recently a court case, they had to admit that they actually spent $3 billion to purchase a virtual reality firm. That's big money. And at this point, you need to consider, well, how is this going to start impacting on EdVET, and how can we start using it? Now, I know that I've been to many conferences where they've got augmented reality frames that you can take your picture with and show up on Instagram or Facebook or wherever you're posting, or Twitter, that you're actually at that conference. So if you're using it for marketing purposes alone, that for your organisation is a good thing. But for your learning outcomes, you need to be considering what's out there in the mainstream and who can I connect to start building some really good capabilities. The Horizon report, and this is this year's rollout, so the 2018 report, we really saw that adoption time to mass market adoption, mainstream education we're talking, so we're looking at higher education. This is not a K-12 focus. So higher education is your vocational education training and of course your university sectors. We are looking at 4 to 5 years. 4 to 5 years is our prediction. Now, okay, we are future forecasting. It may not be 4 to 5 years, it might be 6. Don't hold us to that timeline. But it's important for it to even be hitting your organisation's radar now. And I'm not just talking about your big government departments, I'm talking about all of the small RTOs as well, and all of the TAFEs. It needs to be hitting your corporate message that we need to be looking at these technologies to ensure that we are going forward, making sure our businesses are going to be viable into the future and that we're hitting industry standards. You can see in the Horizon report that there's some visualization technologies, and there's a bigger list than this particular list, so I do encourage you to go back and have a look at this particular report. It does delve into a lot of rich, important content for you. But you can see how mixed reality and virtual reality have hit in that visual technologies area. Now let me give you a nice little showcase from the University of Illinois. They've got a lovely program that they've created which focuses on supporting prisoners to move out into normal mainstream life. How they're doing that is they're immersing them in a virtual reality. They teach them skills such as going and buying a coffee, things that we take for granted, but things that someone who's been incarcerated for a number of years may not take for granted and may need to build those new skills. So this is what this particular technology is doing. And this has been built by the students. It's not been outsourced. And it's getting really good results. So that type of program, you can see how community services could use it. Mixed reality, adoption time 4 to 5 years. You need to be aware of 3 key points. So we've got expanding access and convenience. This is thinking about, well, how can we give our students from around our state, or those students who are maybe doing FIFO, it's a big deal here in Perth to really consider our regions, because if we're streaming out or teaching students who are distanced from us for whatever reason, we need to really think about our access. And if we're looking at using augmented reality or mixed reality or virtual reality, well, how can we support our students to do that? And these are considerations you need to take under your belt. Spurring innovation. I think I'm talking to a room full of converts here. We're all technology focused, and I know that we have been in my department for quite a number of years, from the Australian Flexible Learning Framework through to the National VET Learning Strategy, through to what we're doing today in Western Australia. We all need to invest. It's not just a government agency. We all need to support each other moving forward to spur that innovation factor for vocational education training. But with that innovation, we do need to be aware of fostering authentic learning. And if you look at Dr. Jane Harrington's work about authentic learning, and she's from Murdoch University, please check out her work on authentic learning. It really steps into why this is crucial and why this is critical, and how authentic learning and authentic assessment items can actually lead into good practice within the sector. However, with great technology comes great responsibility. Okay, I might have paraphrased another great Marvel character. However, you do need to consider, is the technology that you're thinking about technology that you really like? Or is it technology that is actually going to be of benefit to your students, be of benefit to your organisation, meet those learning outcomes? Because if the technology isn't, why are you using it? So looking through the SAMAR model is a really good idea, and also looking at Bauer's affordances model as well. Really crucial, critical thoughts need to happen for you as an educator, and also for you as an organisation, as to whether you need to be using the technology. And now, me saying that from a technology perspective, and I am a practitioner and user of technology, it's a hard concept to actually say, you know what, maybe you need to step away from the app that you think is awesome and see what those benefits are. And if you can map those benefits to a viable outcome, then that's your gold dust. Use the technology. But if you're just substituting it for something that you're already doing, is it such a great idea? Leave that thought with you. This is for a really important industry. I've got two industry videos I'm going to showcase you, and the first one is all about construction industries. You can see the future, and that is the key point of that slide. Within industry, now the helmet that he was wearing is not a virtual reality helmet, that's actually an augmented reality helmet. So they can see an overlay, a computer-generated overlay of what will be in that particular building or that particular building site. This is not far-fetched. This is not just in the USA. This is here in Perth. I can say that wholeheartedly because we've actually played with it. It's important to remember that we are teaching our students to work in industry, the industry of now, not the industry of 20 years ago. So if they're using this technology now, you need to get a handle on it. Let's just move through to the next slide. This is Walmart, American chain. Really worthwhile having a look at it. Short and sweet. And I don't know how many of you have actually want to admit that you've been to Walmart, but hand on heart, I can actually say I was there this year, just to scope it out, you understand. The giant orange pickup tower that they had, that's where people shopping comes into it. So their staff needs to be trained quickly and easily with how to use this particular large piece of kit and technology. How to do that? Walmart, across every single store in America, rolled out virtual reality training this year. The pilot was on that particular tower, and that's what you saw someone using. They've now gone mainstream. It's taken them all of 3 months to go from pilot to complete adoption. And this is teaching people customer service and how to support their clients. So it's not industry focused, it's certainly not surgery, it's teaching them how to use the technology that's available. That's critical. So let's have a look at some case studies, and I've got a few of these case studies that really showcase nicely all of the variety of technologies I've been talking about. Putting together this paper, I was able to visit a whole host of organisations, and it has been amazing to talk to these wonderful experts in their field and see how they're using different technologies to augment their training. So the first group is Cert 2 and Cert 3 in engineering. They're metal fabrication students at North Metropolitan TAFE in their Clarkson campus. And this is an industry campus, all right? They're teaching them all of the metal fabrication, all of that side. So these students, this particular group I saw was a group of pre-app students, all males, and that's unusual for this group. Normally they do have a few females in there, but this group was all males. So it led to an interesting dynamic with what was happening with this particular simulator. They're using a Lincoln Electric virtual welder to teach their students how to weld. Now, not to weld and then no, they're not then going out in industry saying they can weld because they've used a virtual simulator. What they're doing is that they're using the Lincoln Electric to teach the students how to hold the gun properly, the penetration levels, how to move, all of those skills that would be wasting, in inverted commas, resources. Now, I don't know about you, but we have over here in WA a lot of cost, looking at our budgets as government organisations. And so there was a real need to drive down how much resource costs that a lot of the TAFEs were using. So they invested in a virtual welder so that way they've seen a cost reduction in how much metal and how many welding rods are getting used. Once they're proficient in the use of the welder, then they move through, and you can see down one of the bottom photos there, I've actually got one of the welding bays that they then move into. Now, I had a really good chat to these guys, and they all said, yeah, it taught them how to actually weld. What it didn't teach them, and they said, look, there were some downsides, and they were very frank with me, so I won't quote them verbatim, but they said what it didn't teach them was how much heat was going to come off that welder and how to deal with all the slag and things like that, which I get because, you know, hey, I can actually weld. So a really nice chat with these students. What I noticed on the day that I was there was their trainer jumped up, supported them with that nice guide on the side philosophy. Then you can see that there was definitely where he got up and had a bit of a chat to the whole group, and they were all standing around listening and hearing how he was going to say and what he needed to do. And then he'd jump up and he'd show them what he was talking about. What I also noticed was the students themselves set up an informal leaderboard. They gamified this entire experience just so that they knew who was the best. And may I point out, it was not always the teacher on this particular day. These guys were awesome and they loved doing what they were doing, and it's a real credit to North Metropolitan TAFE that they're using this technology to their benefit. Let's have another look. So, Construction Training Fund. This was a fantastic experience, and you can see possibly my goofy face in there and Chris's. We went out and looked at the Construction Training Fund, and this is an industry-built training facility. $8 million has gone into this facility. Now, they don't train. What they do is they showcase what's happening in the construction industry. And they get students into the construction industry through this particular area. They've had 1,900 people through the doors already. It only opened in February this year. 1,900 prospective clients. This is the only one in Australia. They've had a lot of industry acceptance of this because it has been built by industry for industry. So the outcomes are there that they need. They had some fantastic virtual reality simulators. Yes, I felt violently ill and learnt that I was not, my future career is not in crane operation, just saying. Chris learnt that he was very good at using excavators, and we both are pretty good at tying down things on a truck, all through virtual reality. They also had some fantastic augmented reality. Now go back to that video 2 videos ago, so the DAQRI one where they had the augmented reality helmet on, and that was the type of thing we were looking at. We were looking at house plans, but through an app on an iPad or a tablet, and we could see all of the different build levels through augmented reality, and we could change that view no matter where we moved and looked at the map. This is industry standard. We were talking to someone at the Construction Training Fund and they said, yeah, I've just had a house built, and this is exactly how that particular building company worked with us so that we could see the final product. Tonsley Campus, South Australia TAFE. Now this is my only non-West Australian specific one, but it was a really great one, and this is Sharon Baldrop, who is driving this particular pilot program. They're rolling out, and I'm just trying to think of, and I've lost the name of the developer, so they've worked in conjunction with a developer to create some bespoke virtual reality submersion work for a refrigeration unit. And it steps them through a cold store, it steps them through an ammonia plant and another plant. Basically what it does is it walks them through dangerous environments. Stuff that we can't do because, oddly enough, we're legally not allowed to put people at danger when we train them. Go figure. The important thing here is that students learn and they will be industry ready. So if you then get out in industry and are asked to go into a refrigeration plant, you can do it because you've seen it. You know what it's going to look like. You know some of the pitfalls. They're currently rolling out 3 headsets. They've got another 14 on order. This is then the pilot program for this particular TAFE, and they're then looking at rolling it out further. There's other portfolios that are keenly interested to create dynamic content with them. Really exciting stuff. The South Metropolitan ASEP Centre. So this is down in Munster. They've actually got a proper, fully equipped oil and gas rig down there. And the students learn on the rig prior to them going out into industry. What these students were particularly doing, and this was what we call a WOW program, so Women in the Workforce program for engineering. So I was fortunate enough to go down and see these guys on their first week of training actually. And I got to see them working on one of the simulators that it looks a little bit pants when you look in the actual photo there of them all sitting in front of computer monitors. What they're actually learning is how to work a specific simulator that is what is used in industry. And the trainer down there, Jo, she was absolutely amazing with all of her history and her stories that she was telling them about, okay, why are we doing it this way? Let's have a look and let's see how things are going to die in the simulator so that way you don't do it in real life. Then once they do that, they transition through to that bottom photo is the actual live lab where they're working with the refinery with a whole team that they're then employed with. The Women in the Workforce group had also just recently been out to Chevron, where Chevron put them in their virtual reality simulator to train them in some of their key specific industry requirements. You can see industry is using virtual reality. So I had a chat to Ty Theodore, who is the program manager and overseer of the Munster campus, about this and how I really wasn't going to consider putting this particular example in the presentation as a case study. And he said, no, hold on. At the end of 2019, moving into 2020, we are going fully virtual reality / augmented reality with this. Honeywell, who is the maintainer of all of their systems, is going to be rolling out the virtual reality for this entire system, which means the ASEP campus will then be live in the virtual rig, which means anywhere around the world, students can access this campus and work through the simulations. Anywhere in the world. Powerful stuff. North Metropolitan TAFE, the Virtual Reality Lab. These guys are hitting above their weight in industry. This is an amazing group. Travis Badge leads up this amazing team. What they do, they're actually training the programmers of tomorrow. These guys have won awards for their work already. So back 2-3 years ago, they won the Insight Award for their Anzac Tom augmented reality. It's still running in Kings Park at the moment at the War Memorial. It's due to be taken down at the end of this month. On this particular augmented reality app, they had Miles Pollard, the actor, do some motion cap. They recorded it, and he also then told the story of Anzac Tom. So that was all about his military service, what happened when he was away in the war, and what happened when he came back. And people could interact with that augmented reality app and take selfies with it, of course. They've also just recently rolled out a prototype to China. An amazing consortium of film directors has organised them to do some prototyping for them. And this particular lab, that's what they do. The Live Now philosophy is prototyping because it's all TAFE-based. They can't charge. So the virtual reality app that they've just rolled out is for directors to be able to shoot the scenes and create a storyboard from what they've shot. So it's really a storyboarding tool. So imagine you've got a virtual reality helmet on, you're holding two controllers, and you've got a sea tanker in front of you. You can fly around that sea tanker. You can go up, you can go down, you can go into the tanker, and you can take shots. Still shots of this is where I want the camera to be at any point. That's amazing. Now the buy-in on that also is that, big blockbusters at the moment, we always have, a game that follows on or something else that happens afterwards. They've already got the collateral built. This is exciting times. If you are looking at doing any projects, have a reach out to these guys. They are fantastic. They know their stuff. So they're teaching diploma and advanced diploma students screen media and game engineering platforms. And then they see the VR and the AR as a bolt-on at the back end of it, which is brilliant when you think of it in those terms, because it is actually a medium that can cross so many different barriers. John Curtin College of the Arts here in Fremantle. Have to shout this one out. It's actually my daughter's school. She's not involved in this project though, ironically, but quite a few of her friends are. This is an amazing little case study, but what I'll do, I'll get Chris to play the video that's shot, and this has been filmed by Addison, their head boy.
Something unique to our college is the application of maths and engineering within the arts. In the Year 9 Technical Graphics class, a group of keen drama and musical theatre students have been able to recreate our very own Curtin Theatre in Google SketchUp. The model created is automatically rendered into virtual reality for immediate use. This has allowed set designers for the theatre and students in production classes to be able to put their set designs in and see whether the set works or if improvements are needed. The Year 9s have used architectural floor plans and 3D models of the theatre for measurements and have been able to reproduce the theatre to its exact proportions in virtual reality. This is a perfect example of using maths and engineering to create something which my fellow students are passionate about and can actually use to enhance their art form.
Tim Rowbury is the teacher out at John Curtin, and he is unbelievably passionate about his students and about the work that they're doing. It was so refreshing to chat with him and to hear all of the stories. The success of this project has actually led them on to bigger and better things. Next year, well, actually starting this year, but next year, the focus for the Year 11 and 12 students is actually going to be a massive industry project. The Lewin Foundation, which I had the joy of going down and seeing the Lewin recently, the Lewin Foundation and Curtin University have joined forces with John Curtin College of the Arts. Curtin University, with Kim Flintoff, they're going to be mentoring the students and supporting Tim as and when necessary. The Lewin Foundation, well, they're supplying the Lewin basically, and they had an industry need. They said, we need to get a fully immersive experience created. So what they've done, they've actually asked the John Curtin College of the Arts to have their students build a fully immersive virtual reality experience for prospective clients, prospective students to come on to the Lewin Foundation programs. So with the Lewin Foundation, you can go out on a day sale or you can go out on an educational experience if you're in the years 9 through to 12 here in Western Australia. It's really a great experience. So these students, these year 11s moving into year 12 next year, they've already been holding production meetings with all of the key clients. And then they're going to move forward into doing some 360-degree videos and doing a fully submersive environment experience for prospective clients. And then the Lewin Foundation, their next project with these guys, is to create some training materials. Again, in virtual reality and also using some augmented reality add-ons. Really exciting times. And these are the students that are going to be coming through to you guys into the future. This is only happening in WA. Imagine what's happening in Melbourne. So there's some 4 key points that I want you to consider when you're thinking about using an XR experience. First one, is it expensive? That's not, is the virtual reality or the augmented reality or mixed reality expensive? That is it expensive to get there and do it? So, is it expensive to fly to Italy to look at the statue of David? Yes. So in that, it ticks a box. I would then seek out maybe an XR experience of some description that I can have my students access that content. Is it dangerous, is your next thought? Dangerous, ooh, climbing the Himalayas, reasonably dangerous. I don't think I'd like to do it. But I could take my students on a fully submersive experience that's already been created. Is it rare? Am I likely to take my students out on a boat and see a whale breach next to us if they're a marine studies group? It's possibly very rare. So I might want to find some content of a whale breaching. That could be in augmented reality or it could be in virtual reality. It could even be in mixed reality if you manage to somehow throw a bucket of water at them as well. I don't know. Thinking outside the box there. And the last one is it impossible? Can you go back in time? No. Can you change gender at the drop of a hat? Probably not. Can you change your ethnicity? These are all things that are relatively impossible. So a virtual or an XR experience, so a virtual, augmented or mixed reality experience is where it can come into it. So you're probably sitting there going, yeah, that's well and good, Yvette, but how the heck do we actually do this? So these are my suggestions for you on starting out. So it's all about, create a prototype. Get in there, create a little 360-degree video. The cameras are not that expensive. They really come down in price. And you can get some decent ones for less than $500, which isn't much for a whole organisation to spend. And if you've got the Adobe Suite, then there's an add-on that's coming in 2019 that is for virtual reality. Otherwise, you can do a free trial of Scenario and run it through that. Create a sample pilot strategy. That's critical. And create a presentation to go with your pilot strategy. This will become apparent on why the heck you're doing these 2 steps in a minute. That's my first part, create a prototype. My second part is the difficult part, convince management. It's always fun. So, and this is my key point, you need to have done some research about how your industry can and is using this technology. Because without that research, your pilot strategy is for naught. Showcase your prototype to your management. Because once you get the oohs and the ahs and the big dopey grins happening, you've hooked them. Once you've hooked them, you need to follow up with your presentation with your facts, your figures, and your budget. Know how much you're looking at and know what you want to do with it. That all comes down to that preparation. Once management say, yes, this is awesome, let's go for it, you run your pilot program. I would suggest choose 2 key high-impact scenarios and work within your budget. Don't go for the full bells and whistles. Do something quick and dirty. Get it done and get it out there because it's a test pilot. You do, however, need to identify what key metrics you're looking at. And don't forget, map it to your training package. Because if you're not mapping it to your training package, auditors automatically will go, e-learning, not for us, thank you. Virtual reality or simulations of any type, no, no, no. So if you've mapped it accurately to your training package and demonstrated how your assessment learning outcomes are coming from that, you've got a good leg to stand on with your auditors. Deliver your pilot Then review your pilot program. The good, the bad and the ugly need to come out in that review. It's your lessons learnt. And then, once you've evaluated it, how are you going to move forward as an organisation? So that's doing that big picture presentation and report back up to management and making some real key suggestions. It's really important that you think about what you're doing at this juncture. With us, there are definitely some difficult challenges ahead in education, and I'm not shying away from it. So competing models of education, you're really going to have to look at that authenticity of the models that you're using and how are you using that blended delivery mode, that fully online load, or the face-to-face. How is that supporting and creating meaningful learning experiences for your students? And how is the technology you're using supporting the meaningful, authentic experiences? Rethinking your role in education. And this is the hard one for educators. This is thinking, am I going to be the sage on the stage? Okay, I'm a sage on the stage this morning, but this is not my natural. Normally I fall into the next category, which is, either that guide on the side where you're not peer supporting, but, mentoring your student sitting next to you. Or that meddler in the middle where you've got that little bit of both. These are key things that you need to consider about how you're moving forward as an educator and how your organisation is moving forward with educators. And the last one, it's the under-resourced campus infrastructure. It's a big one though. We need to be building robust systems for going forward into the future for our students, for our clients, to support them. So your mission, just have a quiet moment, close your eyes. I want you to think back. The year's 1995. There's newfangled technology called the internet has just come to your business. Do you invest in the internet? Or do you go, don't really see it being of benefit, it's not for us. It's a computer thing that can't really have much importance. Where are those businesses now? Those ones that went, it's not really very important, internet, it will die. Could VR, could AR, could MR be that next technology that in 20 years' time, someone is saying this phrase to you? You need to consider it. And I do like this final quote from Winston Churchill. And it really wraps up nicely what we're saying about these technologies. It's okay to fail within an augmented or mixed or virtual reality because in failure we learn. And that learning is the critical thing. And being able to reset and redo, that's the gold dust. Here in this simulator that I'm standing in today, they record everything that's happening. Why do they do that? They do that so they can go back with their students, talk it through. This is what happened at this point. Why did you make that decision? What could you have done? By doing that, the learning objectives, the learning that they're having from that accessible item, that's the important part. And that's what we, as educators, need to embrace. I think I've got a couple of minutes for questions. So, anyone brave enough to grab that microphone?
Hi, my name is Malcolm. Thank you for that presentation, it's outstanding. I really like what you said, that failure is a wonderful learning experience and it takes it to the next level. I've just come back from Australia where all the startups are developing amazing technology. And I think it's a terrific opportunity for Australia, for private providers and paid, to engage with some of these new technologies and to create amazing learning experiences. We don't have to invent it all, but we do know the vet sector and we know how best to use it for the benefit of our learners. And there's such exciting things out there because in Israel they say fail once, fail twice, fail 3 times. It doesn't matter because the learning that goes on is amazing. So we are at an opportune time to work together and to embrace this for the benefit of the Australian vet sector.
That's a really good point. And I feel that now is the time that we really need to consider an approach Australia-wide, because we have lost that Australian Flexible Learning Framework, we have lost that National VET e-Learning Strategy framework that we hung our hats on to support us all with implementing technology across. I know here in WA it was very difficult for me to locate and find people who are actually using the technology, using it well, and willing to talk to me. The lead into this conference, I've been here, there and everywhere, really begging to hear things. You know, I've been out to Edith Cowan University, who had the amazing Dr. Luke Hopper, who is doing fantastic work with the West Australian Academy of Performing Arts students for their advanced diploma in dance, and they're running a fantastic motion cap program where they're using some virtual reality to see how their injuries could be minimised through their bodies. That's one area. Then I've got the virtual labs up at North Metropolitan TAFE doing another amazing projects, and we've got Curtin Hive doing another set of projects. What's not happening is a lot of cross-pollination with that information. What has come from this project has been an amazing set of education people coming together to support each other in WA. And now, here in the West, we're actually starting those conversations. Now that and this project has been the catalyst for that. And you know, we've got the amazing Kim Flintoff out at Curtin University, who's managing those strategic conversations here in WA to try and get some synergies happening for all education levels, from our VET in schools all the way through to our advanced diplomas. Because if we're all singing from the same hymn book, then that's a key point. The issue is, of course, at the moment, if you're building for Oculus Rift, you cannot use it in your Lenovo headsets or your HT headsets and similar, and so on and so forth. So obsolescence is a really critical issue. Now, I was on a webinar recently with the US, and I asked the question, well, are you creating some standards? You know, we've got the Web 3C standards. Is there an international body looking at creating standards? The answer, disappointingly, was no. Now, that is an issue, but it shouldn't stop us, because we can actually be part of the movement to start creating some international standards to help people hang their hats on, similar that we've got the accessibility standards for W3C compliance. We could actually start setting up some really solid standards and development practices that our developers need to learn from. You know, and you'll have some key drivers from people like Travis Badge from North Metropolitan TAFE, and also the Live Now network, which is all around the world. So you've got pockets of amazing work being done, but it is pockets. We need to bring those strategic conversations together, and that's the time that we need to start doing it now. Does that address your question? I hope it does.
Thank you, Yvette. I think it definitely does. I know Malcolm made one more point that I think was salient, that in Israel, you fail once, you fail twice, you fail 3 times, it doesn't matter. And I think it's a wonderful attitude to have in this business.
Absolutely.
Can't be a failure.
And I think the other issue we are going to be facing is, of course, our auditors. And I love our auditors here in Western Australia. We've got the Training and Accreditation Council, and we also have the amazing ASQA. But it's getting those auditors on side and getting them to understand what the software and what the simulations do. And that's the hard part, because quite often they're old school, they're used to physically going out and looking at just paperwork and seeing it, you know, your reports, but actually giving them a submersive simulation and explaining how that students have met their criteria, that's the harder part. And that's where simulations such as the maritime one that I'm standing in, they're already kicking goals. This is actually audit compliant. So it's having the conversations with organisations like this and finding out what you've done. That's also the other key factor for you as an organisation that you need to consider. If you've got any questions about the case studies, please feel free to get back to me. Unfortunately, due to a current restructure, my job is at an end here at the department. So if you do want to contact me, feel free to reach out to me on my private channels as well. I will still be at the department for the next couple of months, but you may not have people going forward that's able to talk to you about the case studies that I've been really talking about today. So I am able to give you content